What up, naughty steppers? It's Connor Whitmore here again with another review for you on the Nawtystep channel. And in today's video I'm going to be talking about the new Ace Aura EP released on Rushdown Records, Guided Wandering. Got a bright and colourful shirt on today because this is a bright and colourful EP. Eric Seall, also known as Ace Aura, is a 19-year-old dubstep producer from McKinney in Texas, who has announced himself on the dubstep scene since the turn of the year with a collection of adventurous singles, one of which, Baguette Boys, contains one of my favourite moments from bass music in 2018 so far.
Delicious French baguettes.
He has already released an EP prior to Guided Wandering this year, a 5-track project by the name of Exodus on the 99 Lives label. Not to mention his remix alongside Rushdown owner Chime of Ray Volpe's track Wet Napkin. Renowned for his marimba-infused, melody-fueled dubstep and brostep that has seen him supported by the likes of Volpe, Panda Eyes and Stabby. Someone who is also very religious and open about that fact, his music being heavily inspired by his relationship with God, something he takes very seriously as an outlook and inspiration for his art. Becoming a part of the Rushdown family following his remix of Chime's track Wait For Me last year, placing second in that remix competition. All of which leads us to this debut EP on the Rushdown label, his second in total. Technically his fourth, but he doesn't like to count the first two, as he doesn't feel they were quite as good in comparison to what he's producing now. Guided Wandering being, above all else, another load of tracks that are very noticeably his. The musicality, the dubstep, and the way that each of those two aspects blend into each other, each one unable to survive without the other across these 4 tracks. This understanding being exactly what anyone who knows of Ace Aura and his discography so far would identify him with. And when you dig a bit deeper, you realise it's individual sounds that really distinguish it as Seall's. I mentioned the marimbas earlier, most present here in the closing track Fabricator, running through the introduction, midsection and outro. Very juicy indeed. But we also have those twisty, contorted moments from the progressions to the drops in the same track. Extensions of this rattling form of dubstep that Seall often uses in his tunes, creating that jarring effect in juxtaposition with the fuller sounding stuff. Which I would say works. It's a welcomed contrast in and of itself, ensuring the emphasis of everything else surrounding such sequences is felt even more. Noticeably Ace Aura moments from the other 3 tracks include the drops to the opener Wandering. The synths used here being the classically industrial bellowing sounds that Seall has grown accustomed to, with that slight touch of colour in them to provide the deftest of warm feelings amidst the abrasive nature of these sounds. The element lifting it into something recognisable as colour bass, a genre term coined by Chime himself. An extent to which I feel more could have been added in this case, but the timing of everything in this first drop sequence is spot on. And it kind of works that not that much is going on, acting as a good introductory drop in that respect, displaying his sound in this pretty straightforward way. The second track, Mixed Signals, I wouldn't say has anything too overtly Ace Aura in it, apart from its musical side, with those eccentric bubblegum glossy notes giving the track a really high definition feel from the start. The first half of the build has a really lovely storytelling charm to it, inviting you into his animated world, a decent range of sounds all at the right volume. I also enjoy the heavenly chords in the midsection, with those light zips from the intro in the background, and the spacey, extraterrestrial feel to the outro. Now that I remember, there's actually something pretty vintage Ace Aura in this track, those moments at the end of the drop sequences where loads of stuff is layered together, almost falling over each other, a bit clunky. That's very him. In the third track, Intrusion, I think it's the spontaneity of it that tells us it's an Ace Aura tune. The hope of the introduction with this very anime, video game inspired feel to it shows the exact sorts of influences that Seall has had on his music. People like Chime, of course, but also Must Die and Panda Eyes. These really fruity, interspersing xylophone notes, jumping into the track out of nowhere, invigorating a drop that wouldn't be the most full of life without them. And following on from that point, just the way the EP is cut generally, bringing musicality and dubstep together in this really snappy way, going from one idea to another in quick succession, is what a Sora represents. Some long tracks here too, showing that he really wants to leave an impression, giving those who perhaps won't have heard his music before a full demonstration. Another aspect of this EP signalling it as his are the vocal samples, all of which work with the tone of their respective tracks. Something he is very good at. He doesn't adhere to a particular type of mood with his music, and the vocals always follow suit, whatever the mood may be. I mean, that Baguette Boys example from earlier is a perfect case in point. But on Guided Wandering, I particularly enjoyed the mystifying Where Am I sample from the opener, the hyperdrive initiated one from Mixed Signals, but above all, the sample to end the whole EP, which says, a statement which is just very true in its statement about truth. That's the truth of it. Truth is the most liberating thing, and for Seall, it's his religion, that which allows him to be exactly who he wants to be. I just find that a very powerful thing. The truth with Guided Wandering being that there is an absolute whirlwind of different sounds on show here, coming together to form an array of varied ideas in the process, taking your attention down different musical avenues with every step. Not to say, however, that this ambitious approach works in every instance, because in some cases it just doesn't. As I've implied in this review so far, there are a couple of drops here that don't sound quite as full and rich, even with so much going on at the same time. The progressions to the drops in Wandering, slower seeming and more drawn out, are just a bit tepid and not posing themselves as worthwhile developments from what precedes them. Moreover, I talked about the droning nature of the dubstep to Intrusion, saved somewhat by those crazy cartoonish moments, but it takes its worst turn in Mixed Signals, where we have these harsh stabs of sound bereft of any flavour or personality, the direction of which seems uncertain as a result. Also, the mixdowns into the drops in this track are a bit ill-managed, which not even this short, mountainous rise in the second drop could redeem. And I say these things knowing that he can do a lot better, where the harmony between all of his component parts really strikes a chord. As evidenced in several tracks of his released this year, thinking of songs like Ensnared and Lost. But here, in between a load of moments where everything does cohere, there is still some refinement needed with his creation, on a conceptual level but also on particular sounds and the interaction between them. Not so much to point out as bad, but more to improve the foundation that's already there, to take the good stuff he's already got to the next level. It's not about correcting wrongs for the most part, as much as it's about making something really promising absolutely stellar. Because with these 4 tracks we have a really interesting mix of either getting the musicality really on point, or the dubstep really on point. Meaning that each song has something really good going for it, whether it's the original drop to the opening track Wandering, or the musically led intro, midsection and outro of Mixed Signals, the vivacious parts of the drops to Intrusion. However, there is a track here that brings these 2 large concepts, musicality and dubstep, together very well, and that's the 4th and final tune, Fabricator. The pleasance of the marimba intro leading us towards this truly forceful and impactful rhythmy drop. Love all the vocal touches in these drops, the oozier, more robotic progressions being an appropriate development too. And those emphatic, isolated synths to begin the double drop are brilliant, really throw you off your seat, dizzying in their design. One of my favourite moments in the EP arriving in its culmination, where the marimba sequence, gloomy up until that point, completely opens up. This incredible final few seconds where it suddenly becomes more uplifting, the tone and mood of the track changing entirely as the EP draws to a close. I think it's fantastic that the moment that most gets you in the feels in this EP is the moment that also rounds it off. Other great moments on Guided Wandering include the epic ethereal opening to the EP, real patience here to introduce the project, not using too many drums where most would have, which works really well. The progressions to the drops in Intrusion, taking some energy from the original release in a much livelier, more exuberant pinball machine sequence. Also the main lead in this track, liking the slight emotional vulnerability to it, the trap-led midsection being where it really comes into its own. It's just straight up vibesing. The way the end of Intrusion blends perfectly into Fabricator underneath that warning vocal sample, very well done. But overall, whilst I would say the special moments on Guided Warning are few and far between, it's an extremely encouraging project for him going forward. He's only 19 and, under the tutelage of someone like Chime, one of the figureheads for melodic dubstep music, his rise will be significant and it will be quick. Guided Wandering carries on in the same vein as his previous Exodus EP, not necessarily an improvement, but as many memorable moments, the general quality maintained from one to the other. He has a lot in his locker, as other tracks from this year have shown, as I've said, so it's just about fleshing that out more and more over time. Guided Wandering is rough around the edges at points, but a lot of his ideas are very ambitious, not only in themselves but also in bringing them together. Furthermore, I feel like there's so much we take for granted with electronic music. The level of detail is huge to make something even sound listenable. And that's the case here. So many moments that keep these tracks ticking along that have to be perfect just for us not to think they're lacking on a surface level. But when it boils down to it, greatness comes from the moments that go beyond that. And whilst Seall isn't there quite yet, I'm very, very sure he'll get there. Even whilst doing his computer science degree, he's already released a boatload of stuff this year. His work rate is mad, he's an absolute machine, so greatness shouldn't be too far off. There are enough signs to suggest he'll get there, but for now it's just about witnessing his steady improvement. And if you don't follow him on SoundCloud already, get following. So much promise to this guy. Now, in terms of my favourite from Guided Warning, then I think I would have to go with the final track, Fabricator. The track where, as I said, everything comes together, musicality and dubstep, love the intro and outro too, just a great way to end the EP. And in terms of recommendations, if you enjoyed this EP, I can definitely feel the Must Die influence on a couple of tracks here, but I would also check out Panda Eyes and Xylent, and of course Chime too. Finally, massive thanks to Harvey Chime for getting this EP to me prior to its release, so I could get this review out so soon after it came out. And so that is that for another review on the Nawtystep channel, this time of the new Seall EP released on Rushdown Records, Guided Wandering. Thank you very much, and as always, for tuning in. Be sure to leave a comment with your thoughts on Guided Wandering. What did you guys make of it? Do you have a favourite track of the four? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, then be sure to give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hitting that notification bell along the way so you can be notified whenever I upload to the Nawtystep channel. Next to my head there should be some other melodic dubstep reviews on the channel, including my review of the Exodus EP on one of my monthly roundups, so if you enjoyed this one then be sure to check those out too. And don't forget to like and follow Nawtystep across all social media if you haven't already. With everything linked, including the recommendations, in the description box down below. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know guys, so be sure as always to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I shall see all of you folks in the next one. Peace out.